This is a treat for me specifically because we have a St. Bonaventure Hall of Fame basketball player in our midst, and we're going to have a chance, a one-time only chance, to interview him about his life and times and what a thrill it's been at St. Bonaventure this past year. Two teams which were incredibly successful, and yeah, there we go, perfect. And we're equally honored to have here in our midst the athletic director of St. Bonaventure, Tim Kenny, and who's going to talk a little bit about St. Bonaventure, and then Paul and I will get started. So, Tim?
I won't take long. I'm not taking up a Hall of Famer's time, that's for sure. But once again, as Greg said, we're so thrilled to be here. From the university standpoint, Jamestown, and I've said it before, we've been here a couple of times now, not just here at the center, but with Randy over at the Sports Hall of Fame. St. Bonaventure is not just the city of Olean. St. Bonaventure is a region, and that's what we try to be, and to be good neighbors and to reach out and do things along this line, but really to have that, and the relationships I've had in just 1 year with folks here and the coverage we're getting in the paper, all that stuff, we couldn't thank enough of the Jamestown area. We thank you from the bottom of our heart. We hope that you understand that it's so appreciative, and it's important for us. It's important for us to kind of expand that out a little. We were talking before, a couple of folks saying, my mantra has been, there's no more little old Bonas, right? We're better than that. We're bigger than that. We should be. Just because we're small in numbers with kids right now, that doesn't mean the place doesn't have to be bigger and be that and be a regional force to help out. And this is a great, I mean, I love this drive. You kidding me? I have to make sure I just keep going past the casino so I don't stop off there a little bit. But just on behalf of the university, and I know there's some good things brewing, not just with athletics, but the university in general in Jamestown and the center here. We thank you, and I think you're going to get a real treat out of hearing this, because back when Paul played was a very special time here. And it's one of the things that motivate me and my staff is it's been done here before. Sitting testimony right here, and the stories I hear just keep you going, and it shows that there's a lot more promise that we can bring. And I'm going to learn some new stuff, I'm sure, today, because Greg's a master at pulling things out of folks. But the stories you hear in this, it's great. You know, speaking with Bob Lanier, Paul, I see Paul, you know, I make sure every game, when he's there, he's right there in his front center at in the front of the red seats. I make sure I have to say hello, because that's good luck. And then when he left for his little journey, you guys went around 5,000 miles. I was a little out of sorts in the middle of the season, but it carried through. I think you'll really enjoy it. We thank you so much, and we look forward to even having more of a presence out here, and hope that you take advantage. And if we could be of any assistance, don't hesitate to call. Don't hesitate to ask the university. We'll be more than willing. So thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy this.
Just a shout out to Matt Cam here of Schultz Chevrolet. Matt and Tim Schultz have been incredible supporters of St. Bonaventure University. When you go down to the Riley Center, you see Schultz all over the place. And Matt will be signing autographs also after we leave here. Paul has signed a bunch of autographs. We'll sign more after we get done here today. Our goal is to be done at 1:30 because he's got a tea time. And I know some of you have to leave early, so be it. But anyways, I want to now put everybody in a time frame. And we're going to show a brief 6-minute introductory video, of which I violated several copyrights. But here we are to put Paul Hoffman in Life and Times in the 1969-70 year.
What epitomizes sports? For the fan, it is the memory. Games rolling into seasons. Two people sitting around arguing, what if? To the player, it is the moment. The moment when you are called on to perform. Olean, New York. In December of 1969, temperatures here were plummeting. but hopes were rising over the hometown college basketball team, St. Bonaventure, that had captured the hearts of the locals. It was the era of UCLA, coached by John Wooden and led by the dominant play of center Lou Alcindor. The Bruins had won 3 consecutive national championships.
My pops used to take me to watch Bonaventure when Bonaventure would come to the Ard all the time, and so I used to go down there when Sam and Tommy Stith and Whitey Martin, those guys were playing with Bonaventure.
Probably didn't go down there with the attitude of being a point guard, to be honest with you. I went down there with I got to get a scholarship in.
I remember this country-looking white boy, big old square-headed guy.
Yeah, I guess we made kind of an odd couple. 7-foot black guy, 5'10" white guy, but there was an awful lot of things that we had in common.
I saw some of the moves he had, hook shots, jump shots, great touch for a guy his size, and start asking, who is this kid,
I come up and I watched Bonans play Canisius, and I told the father who was with me, Father Conboy at the time, that I wanted to go to Bonans, and that when I was a sophomore, that we'd win the national championship because of Bob Lanier.
One-on-one, he was unstoppable because he had so many fakes and moves.
He could do a stutter step, he could do a crossover or a quick move and take you right to the basket.
Wade in the water.
Oh yeah, Wade in the water, man. That was definitely our song, man. It was a great song. Whenever we heard that song, you know it was time to get busy.
His quiet style of motivation and instruction blended perfectly with his team.
Larry was a laid-back coach. He knew basketball very, very well. He knew how to handle these kids.
He just rode Bob and rode Bob and rode Bob.
And I started shaking and crying because I didn't know what to do.
Steaming through the last part of the schedule. 10 more wins, including 3 against arch rivals Niagara and Canisius.
You could lose almost any other game, but to lose to Niagara Canisius was just unthought of at that time. It was my job to stay with him. Every time they did get by me, he ran into Matt or he ran into Bob. So they got a lot of shots blocked.
He was the only little guy that I've ever seen at St. Bonaventure come down the middle and dunk on you, Bob. Oh boy, I'm going to get in trouble.
Niagara was more of a friendly rivalry, but Canisius, it was, blood and gut.
In the first round, we played a very good Davidson team. We beat them by 13 points.
It was Kelball, the smallest man on the court, who headed for the locker room a few inches taller than everyone else after gunning the Bonnies to an 85-72 victory.
Union meet, you just couldn't believe how many people were there.
They were special, and they knew they had something special, and they showed it.
The regional final, a rematch with Villanova, a chance to avenge the season's lone defeat.
We just played very well, and we dominated every aspect of the game.
We had fast break upon fast break.
Defensively and offensively, we controlled the boards.
When we came down and set it up, we always scored.
We gradually got to a 20-point lead and maintained it.
Cowboy was bringing the ball down court, and I was like in front of him, and I went like this, and then I turned because it looked like he was about to shoot, so I turned to look at the hoop, and the next thing I knew, my leg came out under me.
I didn't see it. I do remember turning around and looking and watching our trainer run out to him.
And I never knew what had happened until, they told me that Chris Ford had run into my knee.
You could just never see a picture Bob getting hurt.
Devastated. I just felt empty.
The Final Four, UCLA versus New Mexico State. Bonaventure would face Jacksonville, 1 game away from the finals.
I didn't realize that, Artis Gilmore was as big as he was until I met him in the parking lot after the game. I mean, that's how much I was into the game, and that's how much I really wanted to win.
They were playing their butts off. I mean, hustling, but you could see they were trying to climb this mountain. It was like, and they were like right to the peak of the mountain, and then
You got to do it, boss, baby.
In the second half, those two big old 7-foot guys just kind of like said, pa-pow, pa-pow.
I looked around and Tommy was gone and Matt was gone and I'm standing back there guarding Gilmore. We were in trouble.
I was fortunate enough, I had a steal. And I was going down the left side of the court. And I'm going here and there's a man angling me. And I can see the lights and I can see the refs. And I stop about here, like, I don't know, a 10-foot bank shot or something like that. But out of the corner of my eye, I saw a white shirt coming. I dumped it off to Paul Hoffman. The guy who was trying to guard me or cut my lane off went over. He slides over to Paul Hoffman, who now gets the ball, who stops, lays the ball in, and this guy goes flying. The guy fouled him. They didn't call the foul on the guy. I guess the bucket was good, which cut it to 4, 2 minutes left. But we go back for 1-1 because the foul's on him. Could not believe that. You can see it in the films. I don't know. Out of 100 times, the ref would call it the other way, 99. Or he'd call nothing. So it's not a nice memory. It's a sad memory because I think something got stolen from us.
No doubt in my mind.
I mean, obviously, I'm supposed to think that way, but I truly believe that to this day.
To one time feel that you are the best in the country, it's a very exhilarating feeling. You know it. You know, I mean, it's not a question that you think it, you know it. And the kids knew it.
Happy ending is to be able to look back and hold your head up and say, I was there.
So, Paul, you've just seen vignettes of unfinished business. When you saw it for the first time and it ended like that, or not like that, what'd you think? What was your heartstring?
My heartstring was still that we were going to win the national champion. There was no doubt in my mind that with Lanier, nobody could beat us at that time because he wouldn't let it happen. He was the best player in the nation at that time.
When you, we're going to go way ahead here, but while we're on the subject, Bob is down, Villanova game. What's the locker room like? Was it just as it was shown on that headline right there, that you were just sort of really down?
We were in shock. You know, we just couldn't believe that he got hurt because he was our heart, and we followed anything he wanted us to do. We started that year with a sign in the locker room, and it said College Park, Maryland. Nothing else, College Park, Maryland. And we all knew what that meant. We were going to be there, and we were going to win the national championship.
When you came from Scranton, Pennsylvania, is it St. Gabriel's?
Actually, it's Hazleton and St. Gabriel's, yes.
Yeah, close. Was St. Bonaventure on your radar screen?
On my radar screen, at that point, I didn't even know where Bonaventure was. But the priest that had convinced me to come to St. Gabriel's and play there for 4 years had been a St. Bonaventure alumni. And he had come up to Larry Weesey before with a guy named George Raveling that went to Villanova and hurt Bonas for 4 years. And he says, I have a player who's as good as George, and you need to go down and see him. So Larry sent someone down to see me.
To put this into perspective, St. Gabriel's was really a hot-shot basketball powerhouse.
At that point, yes. We had a guy by the name of Digger Phelps as a high school coach, as if some of you may know, was the head coach of the University of Notre Dame. And after him, we had a little All-American by the name of Jack Cryan, who both came from Ryder, and we won state championships for Digger and for Jack.
When you came there, were you recruited from your home because you actually stayed with a family? Was that uncommon, where you actually got pulled into a community to play basketball?
It probably was uncommon. I skipped about 55 school districts. But where I was it was a very small school. It was a school for boys. My dad had been one of the original orphans at the school, and he worked there, so I went to school there. And I started varsity ball as an 8th grader, and the school closed. So now, 9th grade, I have to go somewhere, and the school closest by had won maybe one game in 30 years. And I just wasn't going there. There was no way I was going to go there.
So you actually went, and I see you stayed at the Vince Gallagher house.
Yes.
And how many years did you stay with them?
4 years.
4 years. So they really became your family.
To me, they were definitely my mom and dad away from home, and their daughter, Kathy, became my sister. And at this point in time, she's the only living sister that I have.
Yeah. So you're now through the process being basically recruited through a phone call or a conversation with Coach Wiese. What did you know about St. Bonaventure? Did you go on campus in your first time and it was Lanier there then?
When I came to St. Bonaventure, I got lucky enough to come to a Canisius game.
Ah.
And I happened to see them play, and I watched Bob, and Father Comboy had brought me up, and as it said there, I told him, I says, I want to go there, and as a sophomore, I intend to start, and we're going to win a national championship because of Bob Lanier.
Canisius. You saw what Gary said, I think it was Gary, about Canisius, Niagara. Was that true?
We were taught that you never lost to Canisius, Niagara, because it was a mortal sin at St. Bonaventure to lose to Canisius and Niagara. The kids would never let you live it down, so you just never lost to them. And I didn't care which team had the best record. Those were great games because they played over their heads. Even if they had only won 2 games that year, they played over their heads when they played Bonas. So it was a fight from the beginning to the end.
Were most of those games, the little three, big three, were they at the odd?
We played them twice a year. We played them at Bonas and we played them at the odd. I never played them anywhere else but the odd.
So talk to me about Calvin Murphy. You got a little vignette in there.
I got lucky enough to have to run around and chase Calvin all day, and I believe I held him to his lowest, and I shouldn't say I held him, but I ran around with him, and he held his lowest at St. Bonas. And I was lucky because they had a guy named Hughes or something like that, and he was built like a house, and he happened to be out that game. And he used to set picks for Calvin, and I thought I was running into brick walls. I was so glad to see him out. I wasn't peeling myself off the floor as much.
But you know, that's your reputation. Coach Wiese talked about a guy who was willing to come to Bonaventure to not only defense, offense, die for every ball humanly possible. You were just a mop in the sense you're on the floor constantly.
We were taught to... in high school, we started pressing from the minute the ball went up in the air because I was the center, and I was a small center. So we had to make sure people didn't get the ball up the court. So we had to be very aggressive. I would go for any ball. I never saw a ball I shouldn't have. And every time it went up, I thought I should rebound it. So that's just something that was bred into me from an early age.
So you came to Bonaventure in 68?
Actually, 69. I graduated in 68.
Okay. Now, was there a freshman team, or did you go right to varsity?
There was no, you couldn't play varsity as a freshman back then. They had all those weird rules. They took out you couldn't dunk, and there was no three-point line. All that stuff wasn't there. So we had to play a freshman league, and I think we went 18-1 that year.
During the course, just I'm thinking of practice, were you the scrimmage team? Were you the red shirt guys that got beat up?
Yes. We played every day. We played against the varsity. And every day it was a good learning experience to have to guard Billy or Jimmy Sadlin, because Jimmy was a senior at that time, and I was a freshman.
And was there an awe factor with Lanier? I mean, here you're a freshman, and you're scrimmaging the varsity, and there was this
No, because we thought we could beat them, and we did it maybe once or twice in scrimmages, but not very often because Lanier wasn't letting that happen.
So even during practice, it was pretty intense?
Very intense, because we wanted to beat them, and they didn't want us to beat them.
So what was your sense of Coach?
I loved Larry, because Larry let me play as hard and do whatever I wanted. If I wanted to take the ball to the basket, he let me take it. He didn't call many time-ups at the end of the game. When I started becoming the point guard, he let me run and do what I thought was best out there on the court.
By the way, before I lose this particular little nugget of information you provided me, this is not your first time in Jamestown, New York.
No. We came up here once during the summer with Billy, because he wanted to come up and see his future wife. And we stopped up here and called from a bar downtown, which I cannot remember. It's off my head. But Sharon's dad was very strict at that time, and it was like after 9 o'clock or so no way he was letting her out to be with us that night anyway. So we just came up here, had a couple drinks, and went back.
So Billy Kelbaugh had all kinds of intentions to meet his girlfriend up here. You were used to bring him up here.
Yep.
And instead, he spent the evening with you.
Yep.
Can you imagine his disappointment?
I would have been disappointed.
So now you get through the freshman year, and now we're talking 69, 70.
Yep.
You're a sophomore, and just kind of go through the team itself, at least some of the major players, and maybe a little bit about them. Lanier, perhaps, we can save to the end, but some of the other guys.
Okay, Matt came up with me as a sophomore.
Matt Gant.
And he could literally jump out of the gym. And it was just amazing. It just looked like he pressed an elevator and up he went, So he was definitely a rebounder and the other scorer inside with Bob. Bubba was a sophomore, or he had been a junior then, and he just kept us at ease all the time. He was a jokester.
We used to use the term Bubba. That's
Greg Gary. He was I can't call him Greg. I've always called him Bubba. He just kept us loose in the locker room, on the court, anywhere. I mean, if we were out in a restaurant, you could hear him before you saw him. And he was always running his mouth, and etc. Even when we came back and have things and people would be gathering around Lanier later on and he would say, "Why are you around him? I'm over here." So it'd be things like that. And Billy ran the team. And it was Billy's job to bring the ball up the court, and nobody took the ball off him. And we all knew that when he got up to the court, what we had to do with the ball. Lanier needed to touch the ball. If we came up 10 times, Lanier needed to touch the ball at least 8 of those times. If we got the score off that, it was good, but he needed to touch the ball. The ball needed to start around Lanier. Lanier was the player. As you could see, he went to the NBA. He was MVP in the NBA. He did a lot of things. He just didn't end up on some of the best teams in the world in the NBA.
And Lanier talked about him rooming with Kelbaugh. Did you room too? Did you have a roommate?
My roommate was from Hoboken, New Jersey, and he was probably not had anything to do with athletics. He was more of a student, which probably was good with him in there to help me out, to make me become a student somewhat, because I would rather play basketball than go to class.
So when you came home from a game and all excited and the adrenaline was flowing and you just want to talk to somebody, this guy could care less?
I don't even know if he went to all the games. So.
Just trying to get a sense of all this stuff. So the starting lineup was really you, Billy, Greg, Matt, and Bob?
Yes.
Okay.
And Mike Cole was the sixth man who we considered one of our shooters. And a lot of times he would come in and I'd go in and play in my position I loved to play, forward guard. I got beat up an awful lot because I seemed to be right here with the elbows, nose broken a couple times, a few elbows here and there. My mother said once I bled real well on TV. I actually had to call her right after they had put about 3 or 4 stitches in my nose before I went back out in the court so she wouldn't have a heart attack. To say, I'm going back out, I'm fine. But
everybody was gunning for you guys. I mean, you at that time were, in fact, no Cinderella about St. Bonaventure. You were one of the premier teams at that time period.
We weren't sneaking up on anybody at that time. By the time halfway through the season, we had our reputation. People knew that we were going to play, and they had to come to play us.
Did you play, you were in the Riley Center at that time?
Yes.
So you were not part of the Armory?
No, I saw the Armory. I don't know how people played basketball in there. All I saw were tanks and things. But
so the season itself, your goal clearly was to get to Maryland.
There was no other goal. And
as you're working your way and you get into the NCAA finals, do you remember were you in the East Regional? Were you ranked first? Were you the #1 seed?
I believe we were at that point. We were an independent back then. They had independents. Now they don't really have independent people. You have to be in some kind of league or something, because we had to win a high percentage just to make it into the thing, because you only had 32 teams. There wasn't this 64 and all that. You had to be really good to get into the NCAA.
And your first game was against Davidson?
Davidson. It's in the Lang 10 now.
And then after that, North Carolina State?
North Carolina State was, they had upset, I believe, North Carolina or Duke, one of them, and because they had won their tournament then, there was no other place for the Duke or anybody like that to get into the NCAA. See, if you didn't win, with only 32 teams, you didn't get in.
Okay. So you beat North Carolina State 80-68, which then gets you to the Villanova game. And you had beaten them before, haven't you? Didn't you play them during the season?
We lost. That was our only loss during the season.
Oh, wow.
We had played them at the Villanova Fieldhouse because they wouldn't play us anyplace else. It was like playing in a big high school gym. And the people were right on top of you, and a couple questionable calls were in there. I know I put one up on the rim, and somehow it came off the rim. Saying Siemientowski somehow had it in his hand, and then somehow it came out with him and me in a jump ball, and I'm like, he's 6'8", and I'm 6'1", and I'm like, yeah, this is going to work out. So, and Bubba, we had called a timeout, and they threw the ball into Bubba, and for some reason he lost for a second, and he threw it back towards Billy. I did everything in my possibility at that point to try to deflect the ball anywhere, because Billy was in the backcourt. And, of course, they ended up getting the ball back. And we ended up losing by a point. So it was, we wanted them.
And you got them? And
we got them. Everything worked great except for Bob getting hurt.
What was the moment in time when all of a sudden, as he described it, there he is on the floor, not getting up, ultimately falling over? I mean, that had to have been crushing.
Well, at that point, I was here, he was there. I saw him get hit. If I got hit, I would have landed 3 rows up. He got hit, he tried to stay up because he was so strong, and that's what made the knee buckle. Whereas I think it wouldn't have mattered. If he hit me, I would have just flew and then been back in the game. And also, if I got hurt, I still think Bonas would have won the national championship. If Matt got hurt, I think if Bubba got hurt. We were inexchangeable. Bob wasn't. We did not have another center. We put people in there, but we had no center.
Matt Gantz's game, again, this is 1970 here, and we're watching television as most of the people gasped when Lanier went down, and then that game against Jacksonville and the two tall Twin Towers.
Matt came out on fire. He hit a whole bunch of jump shots right in the beginning. I think he actually got the tip on Gilmore, which probably shocked Gilmore. But like I said, Matt could go up so quickly and so high. I think he just surprised them. But then after the whistle started blowing, I don't know exactly how many field goals we beat Jacksonville by, but they shot 30-some or more foul shots. And at the end, I looked around, like I said there, I'm guarding Gilmore. And that's because we had 5 guards suddenly out there. Gant was gone, Baldwin was gone, Cole was gone. There just was nobody left. And I think I had 3 or 4 fouls on me.
And that was part of the strategy, was just to be so aggressive and just...
We tried to, we went out there and we played as hard as we could, and we thought, we still believed that we could beat Jacksonville. I don't know about UCLA, but I believe we could have beat UCLA with Lanier. I know we could beat them with Lanier. But it just looked like the officials were saying it was going to be Gilmore against UCLA. There was no way we were going to make it, because that charge, if I charged people who knew me back then when I played, the guy would not have fell right there. He would have fell a long further than that. I would have plowed him without a doubt.
Is that tough to watch? I mean,
I get goosebumps. I flicks me back to that time. It was a great time, except for the Lanier injury. And like they said, Bonnet is a community, because when we left Buffalo, every town all the way down had their lights on the front porch. People were standing out there in the freezing cold, waving at us. Even after we lost, they were there. Mm-hmm. And we always consider Bonner's family. We come back, we try to come back every 2 years and have a little meeting in the summer together. We play a little golf, we have 2 dinners together, we tell old stories, have a few drinks, and everything seems great now. Last time we did it, Lanier set it all up. We're all ready for everything. He couldn't make it because at the last minute, they told him he was introducing Stern into the Hall of Fame. Which he still works for the NBA.
Sure. By the way, one of them, go online, and if you type in Paul Hoffman and you're looking for an image of Paul Hoffman, what you'll see is a wonderful color photograph of Paul Hoffman going to the rim, tossing the ball up seemingly about 80 feet in the air to try to go over Artis Gilmore. I mean, this was towards the end of the game. You guys are really working hard. I mean, it's an amazing picture.
It was last year. It was in Sports Illustrated.
Yeah.
Again, so some of the kids that I taught when I'm still subbing, even though I retired in 2004. I sub almost every other day, and they said, "That is you, isn't it?" I keep telling them most of the pictures you see of me is my butt for some reason. We haven't figured out why. There's a picture in the Riley Center of Lanier going up for a tap, and there I am. My butt. Me and my wife were up watching Neil Diamond. We were coming out of the Buffalo First Niagara Center, and I glanced over and saw a picture of the Hall of Fame people, and I saw Lanier's picture. I walk over there, and sure enough, there I am, my butt.
Well, you
must be I was breaking the camera with my face, because it just wasn't happening.
You were a sophomore, obviously, that particular year. Coming back for the next season when you had so close, and Lanier was no longer there, what was it like?
We still thought, we always believed we had a great team, so we still thought we had a great team, and we played really well that year. We ended up in the NIT, and we came in 3rd place in the NIT. We probably could have came in a little better, but somebody missed 2 foul shots, which would be me. But just getting there was a great feeling. And then the next year, we didn't go anywhere. And it's like I said, if there were 64 teams both years, I think we'd have been in the NCAA my junior and senior year if there were 64 teams. But with only 32, no.
So you graduated in 1972.
Yep.
And then you're drafted.
got drafted by Buffalo, and I got drafted by the New York Nets, and I went to Buffalo for a while, and then they told me the Nets said sure I could make it, and I got down there, and I was like 1 out of 10 guards, so it didn't work out.
Did you have a sense that pro ball was part of this, or was it just sort of something?
Well, I was, hoping to play pro ball. I always had that as an idea. My hero growing up was John Havlicek. I tried to watch everything he did because he just looked to me like a person that ran around the court constantly and dove for everything, and that was the idea I tried to follow. I played a couple years in the Eastern League, and I was still going to Bonn as I came back to get my master's degree in guidance and counseling, and it got to be too much. I was trying to travel 6-8 hours on the weekends and still get back and have a family and go from there, and it got to be too much.
Do you follow the Bonnies now?
I try not to miss a game. This year, we decided to make a trip, and we left in December and literally traveled a whole bunch of states and 5,000 miles. But every night that there was a game on, I was in front of my computer watching the game, and I try never to miss a game. And the last game before I left, I walked in the Riley Center, and I looked, and I just knew in my heart how bad I was going to miss not being able to walk into the Riley Center and look at it.
Yeah. Well, it was a terrific year, kind of a bittersweet ending, but it was just a terrific year.
Both teams did tremendous this year. Both coaches are great coaches and great persons. It's so hard to recruit the Bonnas because it's so small and where it's situated. So, you throw the Carrier Dome and say, here, you can play here or Riley Center. I still would love to see these people that they could become Tabanas, become a legend, become a Hall of Famer, or they can go to Duke and be the number 8 player or the number 6 player. To me, I don't see the idea. I'd go to Bonnas again. I love the family. I love what goes on there. I'm sad to see Sister Margaret leave because she's such a great person there.
Well, when you left, you had 1,103 points over 3 years. You were 62-17 during that time period, and the 7th leading scorer of all time at that time. And now you're a member of the St. Bonaventure Hall of Fame.
Yes.
That's pretty good company.
Well, it would have been nice to have a 3-point line, but it's, and you have to look at it to the thing. Most of mine there is 3 years.
Yeah.
A lot of these people that are going past me now get to play 4 years. And if they only average 10 points a game, they're going to score more points than I am because they're going to play 40 or 50 more games. Right. That's 500 points if they only average 10 points.
Well, it's remarkable. I'm going to give Scott Kimber, who's taking photos here, the last question. Scott, do you have a question here that I should have asked?
Tell me something about Bob Lanier off the court.
Bob Lanier off the court. Well, Bob is a jokester. He likes to do things that you wouldn't expect out of big. I can remember we were on an elevator, and we had Blazers back then that said SBU on. And this old lady was on there, and she was saying something. She said, well, what does that stand for? And he goes, Southern Baptist U. And I was like, okay, Bob. Because I wasn't going to argue with him.
Was he a leader in a sense? I mean, a leader on the floor perhaps, but in the locker room, was he the rah-rah guy?
He would get into us and tell us we weren't playing hard enough or to do this or try to do this. Both him and Billy were leaders. They were definitely our captains, and they should have been because they wore their emotions on their sleeves.
Billy was talking about it, as did Bob, about Coach Weesey all over Bob all the time.
This was just, we had played a game, and We had won probably by 10 or 12, and Larry didn't think we had played hard enough. So he went after the leader and laid into Bob to try and motivate the rest of us, because it made us think that if you're going to get into him, what about us? So I think it was just a leadership thing by Coach to try and get Bob motivated. And it didn't take much to get Bob motivated. When he got in the Garden, he decided he should score 50 points. There wasn't anybody in the place that was going to stop him. That's why I think when we got to that finals, if he was there, and he's thinking in the back of his mind, 20 million or 30 million, and we give him the ball, he's going to put it in the basket. And it was a great motivation for him because he knew he was going to the NBA. But if he played even greater, he had more to negotiate with.
They talk about home court advantage, and folks often talk about playing at the Riley Center, and that really was not only your home court, but it was just hard to beat you guys.
I'd love playing in the Riley Center. These people, they don't understand when I say, you looked in the red seats, there was no empty seat. Everybody was there. We were the best show at that time, and people were there to see it. It was so cold out, people had to do something in the winter. They were all there. And they just wanted to see Bonas. And now I look there and they'll say it's sold out. No. I can still remember that Duquesne game, and I swear they violated all kind of fire rules because people were sitting in the aisles going up in the Reds. That place was just, there were so many of them. But everybody knew those Nelson twins were coming in, and I couldn't wait for them because I had a terrible hatred for them. We had a few discussions with elbows, and they were a little bigger than me, so they won most of the time, except when Lanier helped me out, which was great, except he did graduate as a sophomore, and they were juniors. And we played them down there.
The Nelson twins, huh?
Yeah, they won down there. They hit me many times.
You don't see this, but his lips are pursing right now as he's talking.
Yeah, they hit me a few times down there, and I remembered, and they kept saying every time, your buddy's not here to help you now. Mm. And I think even if I hit them with a chair, I wouldn't have hurt them. They were so big.
Did you have other personalities in the league at the time that you were anxious about playing?
We didn't have a league back then, but anytime, like I said, I played Niagara or Canisius, I just had an extra motivation to play. Yeah. And anytime when, I remember when Providence came in with Ernie D. and Marvin B. when I was a junior, I just could not wait to play them. Yeah. And we killed them at Riley Center, just destroyed them.
Calvin Murphy, it was said, Matt was talking about how Calvin Murphy dunking over Lanier. Was that when you were there?
Yes, but I don't remember. You couldn't dunk the ball, so he's just probably emphasizing the fact that Calvin could jump for a 5'10", 5'11" guy. He could get up in the air, and he was very fast.
Yeah. You're amazing. This is terrific. Can I open up for a couple of questions before we call it a day? Yeah, Ken.
Do you shoot around now, or do you coach it?
I've retired from just about anything with a basketball because I'm afraid to do anything because anytime I get out on the court, I get competitive. And we were doing something like a volleyball thing, and it was a community thing, and my one twin daughter was there, and the ball went up at the net, and I went up way up in the air, and I went to spike it, and as I hit it, I thought to myself, what is wrong with you? You have to land now. And a lot of that's fine, except that I have, both my hips have been replaced, so I have all these screws in them, and my knee has to be replaced one of these days, and it's like, I really don't need to be doing anything, so I'm afraid to get competitive. I know if I pick up a basketball, I can't just shoot with it. If I start playing, then something's going to happen. And it's probably me getting hurt.
Okay.
Was there ever any thought on the team or by you that
he went over somebody's foot. When he hit Lanier, he was looking down. First of all, I don't think anybody would be stupid enough to put his head down and try and run into Lanier. I wouldn't. I can remember way back as a freshman when he set a pick on me once. I thought I ran into a brick wall. It took me 2 days to remember what my name was. So I can't believe that he did it on purpose.
Mike.
Just wonder, when you're talking with younger generations about the lessons you've learned in this game, what's the key lesson or the key idea that you try to tell young folks looking at this?
Well, I try to tell everybody, you should hustle all the time, never give up, play as hard as you can, and remember that you are just one individual out there. It's a team. Without the other 4 people out there, you're nothing.
I know it's still 4 years down the road, but do you know by any chance is Bona planning a 50-year celebration of Final Four team in '70?
I wouldn't doubt it because they brought us back, all of us back in the 40 years and introduced us all. So I wouldn't be surprised if they don't, or if they did, because it would be a great publicity thing for them in one way or another. Bonas has been excellent to me. They take care of me anytime. I love playing every time I can, golf with them. They have golf with the Bonnies in Olean. I try to make everyone, and usually they pick me up on the 86 on their way up to Rochester with the Bona bus. And I go up and play in the one up in Rochester too. And I really appreciate it.
Greg.
Did you have a chance to play against another New York State school, Syracuse?
Syracuse, I would not play us back then. And I believe they were smart because I don't think they could have beat us back then, even there. But now they won't ever come into Riley Center again, because I was there the last time that they came into the Riley Center. They'll never come back. Well, as long as Boeheim's there, they'll never come back, at least.
Is that the answer you wanted, Greg?
The answer I know is true. It's not the answer I want.
Well, the 2 schools have evolved a lot more since then. They weren't that strong back then as they are now. So, of course, they did have Dave Bing and a few other players back then.
So 3 things are going to happen right now. 1, Paul is going to soon be exiting, and he'll sign autographs for anybody who wants to. 2, then he's, after that, going to play golf with Bunch. And 3, we're going to give him a big round of applause for a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rotary, for letting us be part of this today. Appreciate it.